Watch violent shit with me?
Soak in it as much of it as possible.
Oh, come on now.
Hello, everyone.
Really boring softcore porn.
Boom shakalaka.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan Doe. I'm a podcaster, YouTuber, and filmmaker.
And my name is Steven. I'm a filmmaker, special effects guy, and a stuntman.
I like collecting oddities, exploring true crime cases, and directing extreme cinema.
If you like blood, gore, creatures, and more, then we've got what you're looking for. You're watching Scream Time. Jonathan Doe.
Steven Grischuk. First episode of Screen Time.
Episode 1 of our brand new show.
Yep. And today we're talking about the legendary Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Indeed.
Yeah, so I guess to start out, what's some of your earliest memories of Texas Chainsaw?
The first time I had watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a friend of mine from high school knew that me and my friends were having movie night in my garage all the time, and he said, "Have you ever seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre directed by Tobe Hooper?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "No, I have never seen it." And he goes, "What are you talking about, dude? It's my favorite movie." And so he brought it over, we threw it up on the projector in the garage, and it immediately became one of my favorites as well.
Yeah. I was a kid, I would say, like, when I first started, like, finding out about horror movies, the first one I ever heard about was, like, The Exorcist. And I was like 7. My babysitter told me The Exorcist was the scariest movie ever made. And so I was, like, obsessed with trying to find it. And so we'd go to our local mom and pop video store, and in the process of trying to, like, see what the cover of The Exorcist was, I came across the horror section and just, like, saw all the classics, like Night of the Living Dead, and then, like, Friday the 13th, stuff like that. But the original cover for Texas Chainsaw with the girl up on the meat hook, I was like, that just had a visceral reaction to me. I was like, that's fucked. Like, as like a little kid, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I pestered my parents over and over and over, like, to be able to rent R-rated movies from the video store. And I would, eventually, I got my way, and they would let me rent whatever I wanted. And Texas Chainsaw was, like, on my list, but I had to build up courage to actually get to that point. And that was probably one of the first times in my life. I think I saw it when I was, like, 10. Finally had the guts to watch it, and it felt like a triumph. Like, I can't believe I sat through it.
That's a gnarly movie for a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
That's a gnarly movie for an adult.
Yeah.
When I was 10 years old, I remember being camping with my family and asking my family all about scary movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a great setting. We were sitting around a fire out in the middle of the woods, and it was really creepy and everything. And I was just reveling in the madness of asking all these questions about scary movie scenes, and I asked about The Thing and this and that. And Texas Chainsaw came up. And my parents were like, "You're not allowed to watch Texas Chainsaw." And I was like, "Well, why?" And then just having them tell me about Texas Chainsaw in the Woods just got the hairs to stand up on my 10-year-old kid arms, you know, and I knew it was on my list of movies I had to see.
It's one of those movies where, like, the concept is just so awful. Like, I almost think about, like, you know how the Mandela effect is, like, super a big thing right now?
Yeah.
I almost feel like that, like, that's a movie where when you hear about it, they go, "Oh, that's, like, one of the goriest movies ever made." And there's almost no gore in it. But the concept of it, you're like, holy shit, you know, like, that's so unbelievable. And Leatherface has become a household name. Everybody knows. Even if you're not into horror movies, you know who Leatherface is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of people who, like, maybe saw it when they were teenagers or it came out in 1974. So there's people who saw it in theaters and stuff and have this visceral memory of seeing this movie and talking about it like it's one of the most graphic films ever made, and it's really not, you know?
No. It's very much like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho was.
Mm-hmm.
One might even say it was very Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
And the whole not showing the monster too much up until Leatherface gets that door open, obviously. You just know something really bad is going to happen. It's a great introduction to such an iconic character.
Yeah, and it does, even though you don't see a lot of blood or anything, it does have some really graphic scenes, like when the very first character gets hit in the head with a sledgehammer and he has a seizure on the ground. Like, that's pretty hardcore. Pam's character hung up on the hook. That's horrific. Like, you don't see it go into her, but you see her hanging there and just the agony that she's in.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty visceral.
You see the couple drops of blood in the bucket, a little bit maybe on her feet or something, and your brain fills in all the blanks. And you just go, oh my god, it's like hooked on her ribs, like popping them out. Like, it's just a horrible, horrible thing. And that sledgehammer to the face, I remember seeing that and my jaw just hitting the floor, along with the actor's jaw as well. The sound it makes of the when it hits, and it's in my opinion still one of the most visceral scenes ever made.
One of the things that happens within cinema like this that I love, that I think is really powerful, is seeing a character react in a way that's like, I can't believe this is what's happening to me right now. And I think you see that with Pam's character when she gets put on the meat hook. She's like, what the fuck? I can't believe, like...
Yeah.
And if you've, like, actually seen, like, I don't know, like, actual cartel videos and stuff of real murder, that's a real reaction. Like, this is it? This is how I'm going out? And that reaction in itself can have more of a punch in the gut than any, like, really explicit blood and gore can.
Totally. Yeah. That's that whole old idea, like old monster movies and stuff had that same idea that anything that you create in your head will be way worse than anything that they can actually show you on screen.
And you see that in the dinner scene with Sally when she's chained to the or tied to the table, and you just see the camera just like cut to her eyes. This is fucking hell. I'm in hell right now.
I love the way that whole thing is shot, because it does feel like you're just immersed in hell with her, because it's just shots of her eyes and mouth and everything, like all close up, and she's just a sweaty mess. In fact, everyone was all sweaty and gross shooting in the heat of the summer in Texas. So everybody's sweaty, everybody's irritable, and it led to some of like the best performances, hands down, in horror movie history.
Yeah, and one thing that I really love about Texas Chainsaw, and so I borrow this in films that I make, is that hell can just exist within four walls. When Sally's character jumps out the window and then she's running out into the open, she was just in a living room, but that living room was hell, and then she got out of it. And you see that with more modern films like August Underground. One of the things I love about August Underground is it's just two dudes hanging out outside, and then they walk downstairs and they're in hell. And I try to do that with the Degenerates. Like, you walk into this one hotel room and it's hell, and that hell isn't a world like per se, it's just like one small environment that you're in.
Totally. Any one of those rooms in those hotels could have been just a normal hotel room, and then all of a sudden you walked into the Degenerates room, you know, and it is just hell on earth. And this movie's very much like that. The rest of the world is fine, and then they walk into the house and it's just like, feels like Ed Gein could have lived there.
Something that we're going to talk about a lot in this show is the parallels between real life crime and crime that you see in films. That true crime has a significant influence when it comes to the genre of horror, and especially Ed Gein. We wouldn't have Psycho without Ed Gein. We wouldn't have Deranged without Ed Gein. We wouldn't have Silence of the Lambs without Ed Gein. We wouldn't have Texas Chainsaw without Ed Gein. And pretty much any character that you can think of that wears another person's skin has influence when it comes to Ed Gein. That Ed Gein was the real life Leatherface. I think that's something that has a lot of relevance, because people like to draw like a hard line in the sand and go, okay, I like my pretend blood and gore, and I don't like the real blood and gore. Well, unfortunately, there's a pretty deep interwoven between those two things. A huge stack of films wouldn't exist without Ed Gein. I think people need to recognize that like there is a relationship between all this stuff, and you're gonna love Leatherface. Well, you wouldn't have Leatherface without Ed Gein.
Speaking of Ed Gein, not only a lot of films have been taken influence from what he did, but also a lot of music as well. Like there's a great Mudvayne song on probably their best album called Nothing to Gain. Great song. I used to play it in my haunted house every year on Halloween. And then and the Slayer song Dead Skin Mask. So there's a lot of crossover between true crime and horror films and metal and horror films. So a lot of these things just come together beautifully. I mean, look at death metal, for example. It's a perfect marriage of pretty much all of those things.
It's funny to me because I feel like death metal is just horror movie music, you know? Like bands like Cannibal Corpse or bands like Death, things like that.
Right.
Like you can be like, I mean, look at the cover art for a Cannibal Corpse record and like, that's just a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
Know?
I mean, the same appeal to those album covers were the same reason why we picked up DVDs as a kid.
Yeah.
Because you'd go, oh my god, why is this person getting eaten on this album cover?
Yeah, and it's funny because true crime has influences within everything, especially Ed Gein. I mean, my favorite band of all time is Macabre. All their songs are about serial killers, and they definitely have written songs about Ed Gein.
Right.
There's even there's like a grindcore / like metalcore band called Ed Gein. They're okay, but it's like early 2000s like metalcore kids playing grind. It's almost like the See You Next Tuesday kind of stuff. I don't know if you've heard that before, but yeah, I mean this stuff has like a huge influence.
Right.
And I always think it's funny when you meet metalheads who don't like horror movies. Or
it almost never happens. At least in my opinion. I always find people who at least have some kind of crossover.
I feel like metalheads are more receptive to horror movies, but horror fans are not as receptive to metal music. I've met a lot of like people who are like into super fucked up graphic shit, but then they like to listen to like top 40.
Yeah,
like,
top 40 hits. That's a very good point.
Or like hip hop or whatever. But there's really violent hip hop too.
True, yeah. Horrorcore. Yeah. All that horrorcore stuff, or gore rap. All my Butcher's Harem fans out there.
That is fun. I actually do like that a lot.
Yeah, actually, mad respect for Butcher's Harem.
Yeah.
Cum Blood and Bush Pig are my boys, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
Actually,
their music videos are sick. I don't really like hip hop or whatever, but their shit is just so fucking foul.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Yeah. Sequels, spin-offs, all sorts of stuff. Hit us with the knowledge, Mr. Doe.
So you've got Tobe Hooper made his own sequel, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and that's where we get the classic character of Chop Top. It's played by Bill Moseley, who played Otis in House of 1,000 Corpses. Chop Top's become another iconic character within not only like the franchise of Texas Chainsaw, but also just horror in general. Yeah,
and I've met Bill a couple times, and he's an awesome dude. If you guys ever get the chance to see him at a convention or something, you should. And bring up music. He actually knows a ton about music, and he did a record with Phil Anselmo of Pantera.
He had a band called the Cornbugs that had, was it Buckethead was in the Cornbugs too? Mm-hmm. And
amazing band.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I love the Cornbugs.
Yeah.
I want a Cornbugs t-shirt.
I'm sure it's out there.
I've tried to find a Cornbugs t-shirt. If anybody out there has one, please send it my way.
Oh, hell yeah. 1990, we get Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I'm personally not like the biggest fan of it. It's okay. And then in 1995, we get Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, also known as The Return to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that one is funny because it's got Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in it. And Matthew McConaughey has like robot legs and stuff. And it's fun. And it's cool to see like people that are now like A-list celebrities being in like a B horror movie. Mm-hmm. In 2003, there was a remake. And I personally am not a fan of remakes. I went and saw it. I was 2003. I was young. I was excited to go see a Texas Chainsaw movie like on the big screen.
Yeah.
But when I was watching it, I was like, none of this was like necessary. My whole thing with a remake is like, what's the point? You know, like, especially if it's something that's already a classic. Texas Chainsaw 1974 has built this, like, it's on a podium. It's fucking amazing. And then some asshole's going to come along and go, I think I can do it better.
You know what, guys? For the record, when sequels come up in future episodes and reboots and remakes and all these kind of things, John's going to go off on these tangents. So bear with us.
Yeah,
it's called Scream Time, so John can scream about remakes for a whole 30 minutes.
I can say, objectively, remakes. There are remakes that are good. Hills Have Eyes remake is a well-made film. I can say that. Was it necessary to be made? No. I feel like you're stealing someone else's homework and trying to get credit for it.
I was thinking about this the other day because I think about your stance on remakes a lot, and I'm hard pressed to find remakes that are better. Or at least some that are, like, well-made films and stuff like that. Yeah. Like The Blob, for example. Don't get him started on remakes. He's restraining so much right now.
I just feel like if you actually fucking love something, then what gives you the fucking audacity to go, oh, I love Cannibal Holocaust. Let me outdo Roger Deodato. In
John's dictionary, when he opens it up, it says audacity, remaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Used in a sentence, you actually had the audacity to remake Texas Chainsaw.
It's just like, why do you think you can do better? How I look at it is clout chasing.
You guys prepared to hear this rant for several episodes? I have a sneaky suspicion this will come up in the future.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
The original series, which is 1, 2, and 3 that we just talked about, and then they kind of like relaunched it with the remake, and then there's continuity with that, and then they made I think it's called Leatherface, which is a sequel to the original movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so it kind of like skips Texas Chainsaw 2. I could be wrong with that. I haven't been actually following the modern stuff as much.
Leatherface had a really weird scene that completely caught me off guard when I saw it. I didn't see it until after it came out to DVD. But when I picked it up and watched it, I went, there's straight up like a necrophilia scene in here that looks like it came out of Necromantic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I went, how did this got shown in theaters to like a modern audience? I was actually pretty surprised.
I love that. I love when you like go see a movie in theaters and you're like, no fucking way that this is happening. There's been remakes, there's been prequels, there's been alternate continuities, narratives within it. It's also spawned into books and comics and video games and just has built a world of its own. Now you can go to Party City and probably be 13 and be Leatherface for Halloween if you want. Yeah. Which is cool.
It's awesome that like such a small independent film has lived such an awesome legacy. It'll live for another 150 years. Yeah.
I mean, Leatherface is the new creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yeah.
Or the next Frankenstein or...
Totally. So. He's an icon. He's here to stay.
Yeah.
Well, John, it appears that we have a little bit of thunder and lightning happening. And you know what that means. It means it's time for Mr. Mac's 30-second film review.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mr. Mac's 30-second film review. Today, we're covering Skinless.
Start the clock!
Skinless. A film about trying to develop a cure for cancer that goes wrong in the absolute worst way possible. Dustin Mills really knocks it out of the park with his nasty piece of blood-soaked cinema. Even if, personally, I did like the original working title a little bit better. Honestly, The Ballad of Skinless Pete was an absolute great title they should have stayed with. I just poked myself in the face. Take my word for it. Go pick up Skinless. It's a personal favorite, and it's really amazing. This has been Mr. Mac's 30-second film review. Now let's get back to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Mac. We appreciate you here on Scream Time.
Yep. We have a visitor.
Well, John, what do we have here?
Let's see.
Oh, come on now. Give that back. Oh, come on. Oh, you ripped the fan mail. Well, thank you for the mail, Mr. Hand. We will see you in episode 2. Well, Jonathan Doe, let's see where our ripped up mail came from today, shall we? Our mail today comes from our friend John from Sick on Cinema.
Shout out Sick on Cinema.
Shout out Sick on Cinema. We've both been guests on the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome podcast. Give it a listen. John is one half of two hosts from Sick on Cinema. John wants to know, what movie do you love that Stephen hates and vice versa? This could make for a very interesting conversation.
You can go first.
Okay. Now, this is a difficult question to answer because you and I both have very similar opinions on film, and we see a lot of films together. So we pretty much immediately know how each other felt about films a lot of times when we see things together. So as far as trying to find a film that I love that you don't, it's actually a little tricky.
You have a love for horrible, low-quality SOV to a point. I can appreciate it, but you will pull out, like, some real dog shit and be like, this is great. And I'll be like, yeah, I get it, but I don't know if it's, like, a whole 90 minutes worth of watching get it. That's where mixtapes should fucking come into play.
There you go.
You know, because a lot of SOV, like, that's the issue that I talk about all the time is people go, I gotta make a 90-minute movie. And you're like, yeah, but you've got a 15-minute movie.
Yes.
And they drag it the fuck out. And it's got a couple really good scenes and a lot of fucking sleepers. You have such a love for the genre that you'll sit through the 90 minutes and I'll be like, I'm gonna go get a soda or something.
That's a very, very good point. And actually,
not that I have anything bad to say. SOV has its place, but just like any genre, if there's enough of them, there's some duds in there.
Yeah, like, I don't actually know how you feel about it, but I recently watched Violent Shit, the first Violent Shit, and it's, I mean, those Germans got it right with the title. It is both violent and shit at the same time.
Were there 3 of them? Or are there more now?
There's 4 and then, like, a 5th thing.
Yeah, I'm cool on that. I typically don't review movies that I know I'm not gonna fucking like. I try not to be, like, super negative.
Right.
And, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of great things. I mean...
Yeah. I mean, shot on video is a shot in the dark. Like, it's either going to be gold or it is not gold.
Like, my favorite genre is the Italian cannibal subgenre. And there's a lot of fucking shit in there. First, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
But I love it. You know, like, Cannibal Terror is terrible.
Okay.
And so is White Cannibal Queen. But I just love the genre, and I just want to soak in it as much of it as possible. But if someone told me those movies suck, I'd be like, yeah, you're right.
What about, like, the Bruno Mattei takes on the cannibal subgenre? Those are kind of rough.
Those are rough, yeah.
See, we agree on that, too.
Like, I'm not going to be like, hey, dude, you want to come over and watch fucking Island of the Cannibals? Like, I know you're not going to have a good time. I would show you something... So, but I love it because it's just like another entry in this genre that I'm obsessed with. And you probably will appreciate Violent Shit a little bit more because it's part of a genre that you're really into.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you really went, hey, man, it's my fucking birthday or something, and I really want to, I don't know, I'm going to make...
It has to be my birthday for you to sit and watch Violent Shit with me?
Yeah.
I love the honesty.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't subject you to that either.
No, I mean I could pick out like a cannibal movie that's just a fucking slog to get through.
The worst ones I can think of are probably the Bruno Mattei ones. Those are really rough for me. They're really long and there's a lot of walking.
Jess Franco's ones are pretty fucking not great either. I mean, it's like really boring softcore porn and really boring shitty like cannibal scenes, and then a lot of space in between of people walking around and whatever. It's like okay, something's gonna happen, and you're like, oh, that was a really boring sex scene. Oh, the cannibals are here. Oh, that was a really boring cannibal scene.
John probably wanted us to go at it with this question, and it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. We just have good tastes.
I just don't really hate that much stuff. I mean, like I can bust your balls about SOV, but I also don't fucking care, dude.
You know, and there's a lot of like you being like a fetish gore creator. There's a lot of that stuff that does bore me. I mean, at some point, I get kind of tired of the genre.
That's fair. You and I we saw Split together, and we were watching Jack Mulvarnity's segment, and you were like, yeah, I appreciate it, but it's whatever. And I was like, oh, I love it, you know?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's a good thing. And I do think Jack's very talented.
Yeah.
I don't want to slight him at all. I think that he's got a good eye and good cinematography and everything. But I do find myself kind of bored with the genre.
That's fair. I mean, it's one of those things where when it comes to genre films, you know, you like slasher films. Okay, well, how many fucking teenagers getting fucking murdered for having sex are you gonna? If you're not into it, you're gonna be like, oh, this again, right?
Exactly.
And you feel the same way about fetish, where you go, oh, there's another girl who's like gagging and slicing herself open.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, this again. But if you're into it, you're gonna be like, oh, this rules. You know?
You know, it's funny to think of it that way because I think back to, like you said, about SOV, shot on video movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen a bunch of teenagers running around punching each other in a field because they just don't have a set or anything available to them.
Yeah, but if you love that shit, you're gonna go, hell yeah, a bunch of teenagers punching each other in the field. That's my shit, dude. Hell yeah, I'm here for it.
For whatever reason, I make that works for me, but the whole fetish gore thing's starting to get old. Like, I don't know why. I don't know.
And things come in waves, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was that wave of, like, possession exorcism movies that went on for a while, and I was like,
oh dude.
Right?
I was getting really tired of that really fast. Especially in the Hollywood scene. We got, like, a whole bunch of PG-13 possession horror films.
Yeah.
Or supernatural horror films.
The exorcism of ...
Oh my
movies.
god, just a different name.
Yeah, and you're like, okay. Well,
Oh, but what makes this one different? Well, this one's found footage. Well, what's this one? Well, this one's found footage, but a different character holds the camera. I'm just like, okay, like, well, here's a teenager girl. Here's a teenager boy. Here's a little kid. Here's oh my god.
But my sister loves that shit. She loves possession movies, and I will hang out with her, and she'll be like, we'll be on fucking, she's not deep into horror, but anytime I'm hanging out, and, like, it's, like, Netflix, and it says Exorcism of, or whatever, she's like, oh, let's watch it, and I'm like, I've seen this movie already. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it already. You know?
You're like, wonder what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm not really one to, like, shit on a genre. I'll just say it's not for me, so.
There are things we can appreciate about pretty much any art piece. We're, I don't want to say pretentious in that respect, but we can look at a piece of art and go, well, I appreciate the effort that was put into it, or that this was someone's passion, or whatever.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I mean, someone could even, I've read reviews of people saying that The Degenerates, I've been told that I was copying August Underground. I think that I was giving an homage to it to a degree, but I wasn't trying to copy it. If someone's, like, burnt out on pseudo-snuff films, then they're going to go, oh, this is, like, the other pseudo-snuff film that I saw that I don't actually like that much either. And so they're just going to, like, lump it into whatever, which is fair.
I mean, speaking of divisive movies, like, if we went down, like, a list of films that really split audiences, like August Underground, for example, like, we both like August Underground. Necromantic, we both like Necromantic. A Serbian film, we both like a Serbian film.
You like monster movies a lot more than I do.
I do. I like monster movies. I grew up watching, that was my introduction to the genre.
What's your favorite August Underground movie out of the trilogy?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. People have asked me this before and I've struggled with answering. I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to probably give you a different answer every time. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Pick one. 5.
Don't do this to me, John.
4.
John, but I love you.
3.
John.
2.
Oh, I'm going to go with the first one.
Damn, dude, I was actually trying to, like, create a division. Because I was going to go with the first one, too. I just wanted to give fucking the question some validity. That we fucking hate something. Whatever. Yeah. August Underground 1 is the best one, in my opinion.
It's great. It's great.
Okay, well, yeah.
Shoot, man. What do we do?
Scream Time, episode 1, in the can.
It's in the bag.
Texas Chainsaw, 1974, is awesome.
Tobe Hooper's classic. Seminal film should be mandatory viewing for anybody who's dipping their toes into horror, especially the darker side of horror. I know we touched on a lot of darker films today, but we span everything in this show. So if you like the gnarly stuff, stick around for more episodes. If you like the not so gnarly stuff, also stick around. If you're new to horror films or horror spooky people culture, welcome. It's good to have you here.
The whole intention of this show, Screen Time, is to be kind of an entry point for people who are learning about stuff. I know that the disturbing movie Iceberg was like a big fucking splash and everyone wanted to know. And that's kind of what this is us diving into a lot of the classics and talking about kind of the influences that exist and kind of the relationship that they have to kind of like more obscure underground stuff. Like Texas Chainsaw has its ties to Ed Gein, has ties to films like Deranged, which are less known.
If you guys have ever seen that heavy metal tree branch thing where everything like splits off into subgenres, we're going to basically do that with horror films on this show.
Yeah.
So sit tight. There are 9 episodes left.
I scream, you scream, we all scream for Scream Time.
Boom shakalaka.
Forever, always.
Yep.
See ya.
See you all next time. Sound good? Sounded good to me. What do you think?
Yeah.
I liked it.